Hello, this is another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, Director of Sales for Bona Adhesives.
And I'm Rob Johnson from Bona Training.
How we doing, Rob?
Pretty good. You okay?
Yes, sir.
You trying a new intro? You trying something new there?
I'm worried about people using my voice on artificial intelligence.
Yes,
So
I can see that.
Yeah,
That would really trick them.
yeah.
The stuttering and the stammering and all that, they think, wow, that's a real person. And no, it's AI.
This episode today we're going to do is called "It All Starts with the Setup," and it goes to the basics of doing floors and doing things the right way. Rob, I had a guest over the weekend. This guy is 72 years old. He's my cousin. Okay. He's 72 years old. He looks like he's 50. Okay. He was an All-American football player in college. He was a better baseball player, they say, than football. He played basketball also in high school, and he's an Alameda County first team running back all time. There's 100 schools in Alameda County. He's on the college he graduated. He's on the all 50-year team, defensive back. So he's a stud. Okay. And I've never been around anybody of this ilk, this kind of character before, where like all his friends, like he ran triathlons in Hawaii and what have you. And he's in phenomenal shape. Okay. And everything he does is revolved around sports. Like everything is sports. And I've never seen anybody quite like it in my life. The amount of energy this guy has, it was draining the couple of days he was with me. I enjoy his company thoroughly, but the energy level that this dude has is insane. And we were talking about sports. I asked him, what you're coaching, because now he coaches other kids or whatever. And I said, what do you tell them when you're coaching them? He goes, you never give a kid more than 5 things to remember, because any more than 5 things they're going to forget. He goes, but it all starts with putting on your socks properly and your shoes. Get them on there so you don't get blisters. Then you get your shoes on and make sure you have a good pair of shoes and they fit perfectly, because that's the foundation. And then you come up to your core. And I'm thinking, damn, this man is 72 years old, man. It is amazing how he talks about the fundamentals and all these different type of things. So you are the same guy when it comes to your approach to hardwood floors. Machine setup and all these different type of things that you preach all the time with the belts and everything. If you don't have a good foundation, then you can't expect good results if you're not doing the little things to set yourself up for success.
I agree. And I always thought that would be something, especially as we get guys who have been, working the plan now for 15, 20 years in the business, sanding floors and everything. And I always thought that I would just gloss over during some of our trainings about setting up your edger, the footprint on the drum. I always thought that, back when I first started training, eventually I'll just kind of gloss over that and, knocking into it. But I'm amazed every training that, I flip a drum over and show them the undercarriage and why we run it in a certain direction and the footprint set up and things like that. I'm always blown away by guys who have been doing it for a long time they just start shaking their head like, you got to be kidding me. Well, a lot of those guys who come to the training are like you and I, where you and I, when we started with drum sanders, which was a totally different direction, right side of the room to left. They were set up to cut heavy on the left and light on the right, heavy cut, feather cut. So you always finish with your feather cut. We were the generation that went to the belt sander from the drum sander, which is totally opposite. And not only were we doing it wrong, But then we taught a whole new generation of guys the same thing, going the wrong direction. You run from right to left. So I was always surprised how many young guys didn't know that, but it was because they were taught by guys like us who never, we talked in the last episode about going to classes and going to schools and everything. I would have never known it. I would have never known the direction meant anything until I met a guy who I taught, I argued with him for 15 minutes and then he just started laughing. He flipped the machine over and said, "This is why." And I looked at him and said, you win. You're absolutely right. This is the absolute reason why. So, like I said, I always thought that I would gloss over things like that, but no, it's still like you said, the guy was talking about how to put his shoes and socks and everything on. Man, you got to start every single day with checking your footprint on your machines. You got to.
I don't think you have to be a great player to be a great coach. And I don't know if you have to be a great floor man to be a good trainer. But there are a million little things that you talk about. I mean, a million little things that add up to making a huge difference. And then there's certain scenarios that those things change, light sources and different things that we'll talk about. So there's so many things that you learn over the course of a career that I don't know how you could get it any other way. You know what I mean? I mean, there's been great athletes. Gretzky, you mentioned the other day, was a great, I mean, obviously great athlete, is a horrible coach. I mean, there's those guys, because I think there's other things that come into play, managing other people and everything. But I just think there's so many small idiosyncrasies that you learn over the years that makes someone really a great trainer.
Well, you know what they say, those who can't coach.
I know they say that, but I don't necessarily believe it.
Okay. Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
But I like that. That was kind of a half a compliment, I think, what you just said.
Necessarily believe it? Yeah. Yeah, I was
No, you don't have to be a great floor guy to be a great trainer.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily thinking about you at that time. I think you're a great trainer. You know that for sure.
Yeah,
I
appreciate that. You do. You and I fight a lot. We have a lot of fun, but yeah, you do give me the props when it comes to training. I do appreciate that.
And I think you downplay your sanding, your prowesses in your career. So,
with speed, everything was speed back in the day.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, there's a reason why we got a whole bunch of McDonald's restaurants out there. You know what I mean? There's a reason why Motel 6 has got hundreds of places across the country. There's a reason for those. You need those too, right? Not everybody's going to be a Holiday Inn or a Hampton Inn. You got to have it all, but as long as you know what as long as you know what I mean, what your goal is, you know what I mean?
Yes.
What your mission is. I think that's the important thing.
We got some good pictures of footprint. I think footprints, so you can see what we're talking about. Right away, the footprint on the drum, where the old footprint on the drum was a heavier cut to the left side. So when you're going to check your footprint, turn the machine on and just, without moving, set it down on the floor, a tiny little drum mark. Make sure that you give it enough, though, so you can see exactly what the print is. Now, that old footprint would be a heavier cut on the left side, a lighter cut on the right side, being heavy cut, feather cut. But now with today's equipment, that footprint is not going to be heavy to one side or the other. It's going to be a perfect line straight across.
What else you got to look out for, Rob?
Joe? What else? Joe?
Gonna call you Joe or John?
Joe, John, Robbie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Go ahead.
I went to a funeral this weekend.
No.
I faked a bloody nose to leave.
What? Why?
because I didn't want to be there.
You'd had enough, huh?
And Judy was there, so I let we represented the family. So I had other stuff I had to get done. So, and I didn't really know the person at all. I knew their family members, very lovely people, but
All right, all right. I'll I'll dive into this. How do you fake a nosebleed?
you take a tissue from your wife and you hold it to your nose and pinch your nose and you walk out like a purpose.
Where did you leave her there? Did you go in separate
Yeah.
cars?
No, I left her there and I came back and picked her up. What am I, an animal?
No, not you.
No. I picked her up after it was
So
over.
you left her there. Did she know you were faking it?
Yeah. I said, do you have a tissue? She goes, yeah. She goes, why? I said, well, I'm going to leave. She goes, what? I said, yeah, I got stuff I got to get done. It was on a Sunday. I gotta get going. So I got out. I waited till the preacher was like in the middle of something before he started something else. And then I just kind of walked out like, had a purpose, held the tissue to my nose, like, and so there we go. Walk out. It's hard until you get to the door. When you get out to the door, it's freedom. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. I have no idea what you mean. I've never tried anything like this in my life.
We sat towards the back of the church or service area, whatever.
So you had this planned out. This wasn't you.
Oh no.
You said you had your
No.
seating right. You had this planned
Well,
out.
the seating right. I always sit in the back in case, I mean, I'm not in the median family or anything like that. Out of respect, I sat towards the back. And I just felt like after about 15 minutes, I did my thing,
All right. So you leave. Where did you go for 45 minutes? You had to be back in 45 minutes to pick Judy up. Where did you go?
I went home. We only live a few minutes away.
You went home?
Mm-hmm.
Did
Went
some
home.
Bona paperwork and stuff, or
Yeah, did some paperwork.
did you do that, or did you just flip on the TV, or?
No, I legitimately went back to work. And then Judy texts me. She goes, it's almost over. I get in the car. I come back and pick her up. I'm okay with it.
Well, of course you are.
So, all right.
Well, if I go to your funeral, I'm gonna make sure nobody pulls that stunt.
Yeah, if anybody does, you'll know.
I know what's
Yeah.
going on at
Go.
your funeral. I'm gonna work the door in the back.
Get back in there.
Turn around. Go sit
Yeah.
down. This
Yeah,
ain't over.
yeah,
You pay your respects.
absolutely.
I don't care if you have a bloody nose, because anybody listening to this show is now going to go to your funeral just so they can do the bloody nose trick.
Yeah,
Not going to
Remember that.
happen on my watch.
There's gonna be 4 people there, so
Oh, come on.
okay.
Judy's going to have to rent out an arena for yours.
She's gonna rent
Football
out.
field.
She's gonna have to rent out 2 people to help carry the casket. I'm not sure all my brothers will. All right, what's your light source? What are you talking about?
Oh, well, I think a big thing that people don't pay attention to is sight lines. Sight lines. What is a homeowner going to see? So where you're starting the drum, where you're stopping the drum, where you're starting your finish, where you're finishing, stopping and starting. What is the first place the homeowner is going to look at, and when she walks into a room?
Sight lines
Sight
killer.
lines.
is
Yeah.
a killer.
Yeah. When you start looking at a room and where the light source is and where the sight lines are and how many cuts you got to make, all of a sudden it's going to tell you, how many times have you just walked into a room and started sanding and then went, oh crap, I gotta start over here. I should have started over here, because now once your head gets going around the sight lines.
I've always said if the floor tells you what it wants you to do, you know what I mean? The floor dictates what you need. And sight lines is a massive, massive part of the equation. Certainly, if not in the sanding process, which it is, it definitely would be in the finishing process. That's why the consistency of the tools today, you go back to the power drive, where it can make everything dead flat and deadly consistent, is huge. I mean, like you said, I mean, you walk in, I mean, coming upstairs as your eye becomes level with the floor. I mean, that's not natural, right? I mean, we're
Mm.
usually 5 feet off the floor. That's a
Mhm.
sight line that you must 100% consider. The light sources coming in through windows and stuff like that. I mean, it makes a huge difference. So the equipment today could really, you take the light source out of the equation, the job may have been phenomenal, may have been a great job, but you include the certain light sources. You've got the facing the ocean. A lot of times out on the West Coast, everything's out. They want to see you have the ocean view. You come in to sand the floors. You look with that light just streaming in, and then you try to say, well, that's not a natural light. It's natural to that house.
Sure is.
You know what I mean? It's natural to that house. You see, it's all windows. So that's the very much a part of the equation.
Talking about, I know we talk about the power drive a lot. You're talking about equipment and everything. We had a big training this week down in New Jersey. Just a 2 day, but we squeezed a lot of loving into that school, and we had a lot of people, and I all the tech guys who could usually come out and help. Everybody had schools last week, so we always bring in Pedro Carrera. You've met Pedro 100 times. Just one of
Nice kid.
the greatest guys in the business. He always helps us out with our schools with the Spanish translation, but we knew we were going to need another guy, so I just helped my son do a floor. So I said, "Hey, um, you want to come down and help train for a couple days?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to."
No kidding.
And yeah, so it was fun. Had him down there for a couple days.
That is
And
awesome.
what was great was he's always kind of been on the fence about the power drive because he's really never put his hands on it. The last time he tried one, it was when they first came out, and they didn't have the weights. It was no weight kit, and that was his really first time going at it with a power drive. But since then, that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. So since then, of course, you get the weight and the steel plates and all the good things that we have for the power drive now. Anyways, he was working a panel for us, and I don't think he likes to admit it, but I think he loves training. I know he
Yeah,
loves doing floors, but I think he also gets something out of being a coach on a panel. And all of a sudden I see him down and he's coloring in some marks, and he had a new guy on the floor. So I walked over and I said, and he's always big for constantly with the light and looking at everything on his jobs. He's like, yeah, we get the guy was going a little too slow and he was leaving some sidelines in there, some cuts, from going too slow with the machine. And he goes, so I'm coloring in, so we take him out. And I said, no, don't worry about it, because the next cut's going to be with a power drive. You'll be okay. And he looked at me and he goes, power drive isn't going to take that out. I said, you know what? The power drive is going to take that out without you even trying to take him out. Believe me. And I forgot all about it. And then we're driving home. And he's like, that was pretty impressive. I said, really? What are you talking? He goes, you're right. The power drive just took those marks out like they were nothing. I said, yeah, it's not the same machine that you saw 5 or 6 years ago, man. So yeah, he was definitely on board now with the power drive.
that's pretty cool. Is that the
Yeah, that
first?
was
Is that the first time you trained with him?
no. He helped us out years and years ago at our very first Christmas school, where we had so many people coming to that school that I needed an extra set of hands. And this school was the same thing. We had a lot of guys, but our training team was out training. I mean, we had like 3 or 4 schools going last week all at the same time. So we were out there. So I just said to him, hey, if you want, I could use a set of hands. And so he loves training, and he's really good at it, and he's really good with the products, and he's got a great eye for it too. So, like I said, I would have never picked up those side marks
Hmm.
that he was picking up.
I would venture to say that our listeners that have been doing floors for any number of years, let's say 10 years or whatever, I bet they would love to help train in a class. I think they would. I think they would if they would learn. I said before, you learn so much about yourself and about the trade when you help somebody else do it, and see what they get out of it and whatever. And when you start going step by step, and there's something that happens when you start giving away your knowledge to somebody else that is just kind of like changes the kind of your whole approach. And I think it's pretty cool. I said it before. I never even thought about it until I started training, and then right away then you start realizing how much you know. You know what I mean? And then when you start telling someone how to run a machine, you realize that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many
Yeah.
more things.
When you were saying about the guy who stayed with you, how he does 5 things, don't teach any more than 5 things. Man, there's so many times, especially when you get somebody new to training, new on our tech and training team, and they're watching me show somebody how to run a big machine, and then they'll kind of step in and go, "No, you got to do this, this, and this," and I'm always like, "Just give it a little time," And I said, "We just give them 3 bullets to think about, and then let them run the machine for 10 minutes, get some muscle memory, and then give them another 3 things to think about. And then when you see that they're getting their footwork right and moving the machine at the all the things that go with it.
Mhm.
um but to throw 10 or 12 things at somebody, no,
Yeah,
no way, not going to work.
yeah,
It's tough. I mean, it's tough when you're coaching kids. It's when you're coaching kids, my gosh, it's 5. I think five's a lot.
yeah,
Five's a lot for the little guys to
mm,
to get. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Just start with a couple, add a couple more. Speaking about um, kids in sports, I want to give a shout out to my grandson Luke. Luke has been playing, some form of t-ball for the last couple years. Okay, and t-ball is, everybody hits, nobody strikes out. It's
Hmm.
everybody hits, everybody gets on base. It's a tie score at the end of every single game.
Hmm.
But this was Luke's big transition year from going from that type of baseball to real baseball, where he's going up against kids pitching,
Hmm.
and he had a rough start. Beginning of the year, first half of the year, he had a rough start, to the point where I was like, Man, it's going to be tough for him to keep liking this. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
could just
yeah.
tell. And he's the kind of kid, if he's not excelling at it, but I was talking to his dad, and his dad said, man, he is out every day using the swing trainer. I got him this, kind of a batting swing trainer thing. He's out there every day before school practicing, every day after school practicing, hitting, throwing. And I would say the last half, the last third of the season, it was awesome because, yeah, I think baseball's beautiful. I know a lot of people think baseball's boring, but there's something beautiful about baseball, I think, compared to other sports. And all of a sudden, you could just see that baseball clicked for him. Getting a hit when there's a guy on third base, stealing a base, paying it. All of a sudden, the whole thing just clicked to him, right? To the point where, like, the second to last game of the season, Luke's coach called him out in front of the team and said, Luke Chapin is definitely our RBI king, you know? So, yeah. And I was so happy that the coach kind of pointed that out because, like I said, beginning of the year was a rough start for the little guy, but my God, by the end of the year, he was just loving baseball. So I know that's a long, boring story, but we were talking kids sports. It was just awesome to see him get baseball.
That's very cool. And I love the name Luke. I don't know who was he named after somebody or how was that name come about?
Uh, Geez, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
One
Maybe I
question.
should ask him. Maybe I should
Yeah.
ask my daughter. What
Yeah.
I think it might have
Yeah.
been a family name from Brian or Emily's husband. Brian might be a family name
Okay.
from their side, I think.
Good
But
for him. Good
they
for
went
him though.
they went with classic names,
Hmm.
Luke and Jack.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, if Jack Chapin isn't the captain of the USA hockey team someday, you know, I'll be shocked. That's such a
Yeah,
great hockey name,
that
Jack Chapin.
is. Very cool. That's very cool. All right. Um, what do you mean by make sure you're operating in the correct direction? Okay, we got that. Customer sight lines, we got
Well,
that.
no, we really didn't talk about. We talked about setting the machine up and the footprint, but now you got to flip the machine over just to prove it to yourself. If you don't believe me, all belt sanders need to run from left side of the room to the right, and the reason being is you just flip your machine over, and you'll see what I'm talking about, where the wheels line up behind the drum sander, behind the actual sanding head. Running from left to right, it's always all three wheels of the machine are always going to be running in a freshly sanded area. Running from right to left, that outside wheel on the left side of the machine, everything it touches, high board, low board, butt joint, seams, and everything, is going to move the machine and telegraph to the cutting head. So that's why everything left to right. And it's just absolutely shocking. And like I said, why? I mean, we were all taught that way. We were all taught right to left. We made the transition. Nobody really taught us back then when we went from drums to belts. So that's why it's that left to right. To prove it to yourself, just flip your machine over. Like I said, if you run it the wrong direction, you see that outside wheel on the left side of the machine is just going to hit everything and telegraph over to the cutting head. So that's what I meant about running it in the proper direction.
What about edging?
Same thing. Okay. Same thing. Your heavy cut on the edger is going to be on the right side of the machine. And you're going to set it up so your footprint is going to be between 12 and 3. And by setting it up between 12 and 3, and one of the reasons is it's not a mechanical thing, it's more of a dust collection thing. We all know edgers are notorious for dust pickup. So by setting that footprint up between 12 and 3, you're going to get much better dust pickup just because of the way the intake manifolds are.
It's also nice too. I mean, and in harmony of sanding the floors with somebody that, you know what I mean, that if they're going from on the right side of the room to the left side of the room, and you're starting on the left side of the room with the belt sander to the right side of the room, then somebody's going to be in your way. You know what I mean? So it's nice. Is there anything worse than an edger guy being in your way? It's just messes up your whole rhythm of your day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whether you get them out of the way first or whatever, I mean, just, it's nice that everybody's in concert. Yeah.
I always like the edger guy to follow me.
I do too.
I can make his life a lot easier.
Yes. And I
Cutting
always
in
want
closets, cutting around islands, cutting in wherever. I can do a lot of big machine work, then really cut down on his edging.
yeah.
I always figured, that's the one thing that I owe to the guy. Here I am standing up on the big machine.
Yeah.
Let me do as much as I can, even running the machine side to side, standing on the side of it and holding the stack and the handle and moving the machine that way, just to get even more. I was a friend to the edger.
Yeah, you
I
can
was a
absolutely.
friend to the etcher man.
Yep, you can absolutely be. And for that reason, I always wanted to follow the machine too. And yeah, you're right. You can make that guy's life a whole lot easier. Yeah, just by knowing what challenges he has as well. So
Right.
absolutely.
And if you don't like the guy,
Yeah. Sorry, it's as close as I could get to the wall.
yeah, hey, what do you want me to
Yeah,
do? Bang into the wall?
yeah, you know my eyes are bad.
Right.
Yeah. Um,
The next time I tell you no sugar in the coffee, it's no sugar in the coffee.
that's right. Edger man.
Etcher man.
All right, customer sight line.
I am definitely going to show you how to work
Listen,
the
here's
do
the
not
deal.
disturb.
Here's the deal.
I know you're an important man. I know.
Exactly. Huge
I
lead.
get it.
I never put my phone on silent ever, because if I forget to not put on silent, I don't want to miss somebody's phone call. You never know who's going to be calling me.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
could be Sweden on the line for you.
You
Could be Sweden, could be Germany.
You can't imagine,
it.
Rob.
You're right. I can't.
Yeah.
I absolutely cannot imagine that.
So sorry about this small disruption. Customer sightline. Go.
All it takes, one little drum mark. One little drum mark in her customers in her sight line. Now they're going to spend the rest of the day walking around with the sander's eye, right? Mm-hmm. The sander's eye. Everybody who sands floors gets it, no matter where we go. You can always tell a floor sander, you included. Even though you're a director, you still probably have that sander's eye everywhere you go, restaurant, friend's house, store, wherever. Where are you looking?
I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get past the word probably. Entrance ways, so important, man. And it goes to the same thing: the sight lines, the visible areas, bathrooms, kitchens. Kitchens are a biggie around door areas. And when you do look to look at other people's work, you know where the hot spots are, and that's why I always look at like in the island between in the kitchen around the island. That can be a challenging area. I always look in that area there to see how it was sanded, round door casings and stuff like that. Those things are the areas that stand out. Can lights have changed the game. As I look up in the room that has no can lights, mm-hmm. So those critical areas make a big difference too.
Absolutely. And that's probably one of the toughest places to coat is when you're walking out the door or walking out where she's going to walk in first.
Yeah.
Because now you're walking into that, airflow, no airflow. And that's why that area has to be just as clean as the job site.
For that reason, a lot of times I did not coat out that front door. I found another way to coat out instead of going out the front door. Because I know when they're going to swing that door open for the first time, it's the first thing they're going to see. Mm-hmm. And that's going to judge everything. They swing that door open. They see anything they don't like in that area that they're going to examine because this is their new floor, new finished floor. That's not a place you want to have anything remotely close to a flaw.
No, matter of fact, that's where I want my starter to be. I want to start there because you always know that's going to be the best part of the job. What else we got? Entranceways. We just talked about entranceways.
Everything we're prepping for during sanding is getting the first sealer coat down correctly. Burnish the final coat with 120 grit clean with Tampico.
Burnishing the final cut with a 120 paper and then clean with a Tampico.
Mm-hmm. All the difference in the world.
Some of the best advice we can give anybody, I think.
You don't leave home without a Festool. You don't leave home without the fine, soft, round door jams. And I'm telling you that Tampico brush is a game changer. So I'm in love with that tool. Yeah, it's a difference maker, and it's a money maker. because when you're talking on the estimate is where that comes in the most valuable use. Say, listen, we're going to see us vacuum these floors probably 5 or 10 times while we're here. But there's an additional step we do that most people will not do. We take a Tampico brush, we put it on our buffer, and we get down into the pores of the soft grain, and we extract that dust out that you cannot get with a vacuum cleaner. And it sets it up for a beautiful finish coat. Almost leave a sheen. Well, it does leave a sheen across the floor. It's so smooth. You tell a homeowner that message comes across, that's going to leave a mark. I was going to say that's going to leave an impression. It's going to leave a mark on the other guy's bottom line because he's not getting this one.
Have you seen the picture of the what product management did? They took a picture with like a microscope or something of a floor that was sanded to 120 and then vacuumed intact, and then a floor that was sanded to 120 and was Tampicoed.
No.
I sent you that picture. It's crazy. It'll blow you away.
Yeah.
And what we're looking for in that first coat of sealer, that's it. First coat of water-based sealer, man, we get that right, everything falls into place. That's the one that's going to give us the toughest time. So that's why finishing with a 120 paper or a diamond rather than a screen, and then hitting it with a Tampico brush, that's just going to extend the working time that we get with that first coat of sealer on bare wood. We've proven it time and time again at all of our classes.
It extends the open time. And when that coat is done and it's setting up pretty, I mean, like you said, it sets you up for success all the way through. And I never believed in the philosophy, or it's just a seal coat, we'll buff it out. I don't know why. I just don't believe in that thought process. Vacuum thoroughly, Tampico the floor, thin the wind to me, as my opinion on the first coat, get it down nice and even and uniform, and you're going to be set up pretty for the rest of your coats.
I think it's the main coat. I think it's the most important coat.
Mm-hmm.
We get the first one down right, and it looks awesome. Everything is going to fall into place. The rest of the coats from there on in are going to be easier.
Yeah,
absolutely. And as long as we don't have to fight it, like you said something, a couple seconds ago, like, don't worry about it. We'll buff that stuff out. Man, that's a nightmare. You're going to fight that forever.
The other thing you do, if the homeowner sees it at that point and they kind of lose his confidence a little bit, and you can say, yeah, well, it's just the first coat, it'll buff out or whatever. But there's just a little bit of uncomfortableness there on their part. Like, wow, I didn't know it was going to be this, it doesn't look smooth yet or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I just want to have that conversation.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You were a fan of the Rocky movies?
Somewhat, the earlier ones especially. I don't like
never did this in my life. So I told you Bum was working with us this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're driving home. There's Thursday night. We're driving home, and he goes, "Hey, you want to watch Rocky 3?"
Wacky or Rocky?
Nah, Rocky.
Yeah.
Rocky. He goes, "You want to watch Rocky 3?" I said, "Rocky 3? What are you talking about?" We're driving. He sets it up on his phone, and no kidding, we're watching Rocky 3. Now, of course, I'm driving, so I'm not watching it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I want to know the sound effect that they use when they're hitting each other. Because it sounds like a baseball bat hitting a heavy bag. I mean, it's some unbelievable. No, I know you're a tough guy. I know a tough guy. You've had some fights and everything. When you punch somebody in the face, it's kind of silent, right?
Doesn't really sound much like anything.
It doesn't sound like anything, right?
Just whimpering.
So he asked me, he goes, "What's your favorite Rocky?" And I said, "Oh, definitely, Rocky 1. And I said, "What's yours?" Thinking, I think everybody's would be Rocky 1.
Yeah.
This is Rocky 4.
Really?
That's what I said.
Yeah, no, it's got to be Rocky 1.
What are you talking about, Rocky 4? How is it possible that Rocky 4 can be the best out of all the Rockies?
Did you pull over and let him out?
He, he starts yelling at me. Dad, he ended the Cold War. One fight ended the Cold War. I was like,
He's thinking about it too literally.
yeah. So if you had to rate the 5 Rockies, how are you going to rate them?
I don't remember him that well. I remember Rocky
All
1
right,
was
well,
by far.
I'll run it through.
Wait a minute. Which one was did he fight the Russian the first time?
That was
Is that
he only
4?
fought the Russian once. That was
Okay.
4.
That was a great one, but it wasn't the best. I go 1-4.
1 and 4.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's something. 1 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody considers 5 anywhere. I think 5 is always going to be 5.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
He fought Tommy
Mm-hmm.
Morrison.
Yeah, Tommy Morrison. It was.
So that's always going to be in 5th place for me.
Yeah.
But I always thought the Mr. T.
That was a good one.
Rocky 3.
Well,
Rocky 3 ranks number 2 for me. Number 1 is always going to Rocky 1 always going to be number 1. But ranking them, I got to rank Rocky 3 when he fights Mr. T. I got to rank that in 2nd place.
the problem with that is history, because Rocky, he was a beast, man. I mean, he was a frightening individual in that movie, but later on, he was like a lovable goof. You know what I mean, Mr. T. So it just doesn't stand up the same way. All right.
Lovable goof.
Yeah.
Carl Weathers is jacked in all of those, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Holy crap. He is like jacked in that.
Rocky had the worst cast wife of all time. She was not a good wife.
Oh, really?
No, Adrian. No. She was not a good wife in that movie. Nor was Saturday Night Live's John Travolta's love interest. That was bad too. That was bad casting.
Oh, and Saturday
All right.
Night Live? What was the name
Yeah.
of that? Staying Alive. Was it
Staying Alive. Yeah, Staying Alive. That's what I meant. Staying Alive.
Was that the name of the movie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
I think it was Staying. Yeah. No, his love interest is that could have been his mother.
Yeah. I got to tell you something. I saw the greatest thing on Netflix I've seen. I was riveted by it. I'm fascinated by it. I think everybody should watch it. Chimp Empire.
What?
Chimp, like the chimpanzees? Chimp Empire is absolutely fascinating to me. How much they're like humans, and the hierarchy and the social beings that they are. It is absolutely one of the best things I've seen on Netflix.
That's on Netflix.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's just some of the things that, and I agree with you, Rob, as far as setting yourself up for job sites. I think sightlines is massive, something that it needs to be taken into consideration. I mean, so many times that jobs have failed that were pretty decent jobs, very decent jobs, really good jobs, but sightline was what caused the callback and was a deal breaker. Would have been fine probably in any other setting, any other light source. Take that light source out, where like evening time or whatever, or before the sun has come up, and the floor looks fantastic. But the light source is a huge play. You can take a guy who's last 9 jobs did a phenomenal job. Boy, I'd hire this guy every day. He's a stud. Put him on that 10th job, and you have the light source in the wrong direction that hinders him what he's done and just kind of costs him the whole job. So, and that's where I feel that's where you see homeowners, talk about a guy. Well, this guy must not have been very good, or he took a shortcut, or he didn't do a good job on my blah blah blah. And they just don't understand how critical the light source, or nor do they care how critical the light source is to a job site. So, let the light be with you. Go forward in the light. Shoot, I don't know. Okay.
I thought it was Let the Force Be With You.
Yeah, I can't stand those movies. I don't do science fiction.
You don't do Star Wars stuff?
But this is not fiction. This is the truth.
This is
Okay.
This is real, man.
This is real. So we just keeping it real. All right. This has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please stay tuned for another episode.